Hello, and welcome back to the Better Divorce podcast. I am your host, Paulette Rigo, CEO and founder of Better Divorce Academy, author of #1 best-selling book, workbook, and audiobook, The Better Divorce Blueprint, and the host, yes, of the Better Divorce podcast. I started this podcast about 9 years ago to be a resource for those in any stage of divorce so they could have the resources, tools, tips, and dare I say tricks to get through divorce wisely. Today, I am very happy to have a guest, an attorney from the UK. And there's a little bit of, story behind that. So Daniel Ryan is here with me, and he's the voice behind That Family Law Guide, a candid and compassionate advocate for parents navigating the storm of separation, custody battles, and domestic abuse conflict. He provides unfiltered expertise with real world impact. So welcome to the show, Daniel.
Thank you, Paulette. That was a very pleasant introduction. Yes, thanks. And it's a delight to be here with you.
Well, my father was half English, half Irish. So I remember in our trips to England, I would always feel comforted by English accents, so British accents. So I really enjoy them. We spent quite a bit in the UK last summer, and it felt like coming home. So I love that you're here. Talk a little bit about your practice and why you do what you do. Give everyone a little bit of a backstory. Why would you possibly want to be a family law attorney?
It's goodness me, why would anybody want to be a family law
That's a
attorney?
very good question.
But the reason the reason that I stumbled into it, and I did stumble into it, is really it was a need to recognise that there are some people who haven't got the wherewithal, haven't got the financial resource to be able to cope in the family law system, to be cope in law proceedings on their own. And my colleagues in the legal profession are expensive. And so I wanted to create a practice which has now been running for almost 20 years. I wanted to create a practice that was accessible to people, to normal people, to people who are still going through the same issues of divorce, still got to deal with those issues, still got to resolve those issues, but possibly they haven't got a wealth of financial resource to be able to deal with it. So that's why I launched it. In order to make that accessibility for people. So what we have now is Mackenzie Picave, which is my practice, which operates in the UK, provides legal services to the divorce market and to the child custody market here in the UK. And we work slightly differently from a number of our colleagues in the profession, in that we do make ourselves very accessible, and that means 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, accessible to our clients. And a sizable proportion of our clients, something in the region of probably 25 or 30% of our client base, are worked on what we refer to over here as a pro bono basis. I don't know if that word travels, but pro bono means that they don't pay any fees. So we work for them entirely for free.
That is incredibly rare. I do find here in the US, although I have had quite a few clients in the UK and beyond, Canada, Central America, and my book editor is from Australia. So I've met many different professionals all over the world now, but I find it's a universal problem. A, attorneys are very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Universally. B, attorneys are typically not very accessible to their clients. And C, coming into what you mentioned, that it is overwhelming, intimidating even to navigate the family court system. The legal system as a whole is overwhelming. First of all, there's a language that, like, what is all this lawyer speak and, legalese? And there's a language of its own, right? It really, of course, some of it's in Latin and all that business, but it's a whole nother world. I know when I went through my divorce many years ago, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Pardon my French, but I didn't know what I was doing. I made so many mistakes. I was incredibly intimidated by the legal system. I really didn't understand the methods of divorce. I didn't know what the courts cared about. I didn't understand depositions and discovery and interrogatories and legal fees and hearings and pretrial conferences and a domestic relations financial affidavit. And I'm going to stop now. If you're listening to the audio, he's nodding. You know, this is a long, long list of things you have to do and understand, and it's overwhelming, time consuming, and yes, expensive. So I commend you for trying to change the experience, the preparation, and hopefully the outcome of divorce.
You're absolutely right. I think the court system, the legal system, the legal profession is intimidating. And my view is that it's, this is not a view that's held by many, but my view is that it is deliberately intimidating. There is a pursuit of a black art in the legal profession in order to keep themselves above, to keep themselves more arrogant, more haughty than the client. And I look to, and all I've looked to do for the last, as I say, the years that I've been doing this, all I've looked to do is break down that intimidation and say, look, you're in some pain, you're in some discomfort. I'm going to talk to you in incredibly plain and sometimes blunt language, which I'll resist from your podcast, Paulette. But I will talk to you pretty bluntly and pretty openly to tell you how it is, because I want you to understand. I need you to understand what is going on around you and what the next step is going to be and what the last step meant. So that's the ethos that we use. So yes, I can do the clever stuff, and I can do the legalese, and I can ramble for 20 minutes where people haven't got a clue what I've just said. I can do all that, but that serves no purpose. That serves no purpose to the client.
So, yeah, beautiful. I'm nodding too. So, what is it really like inside the family court system? You mentioned that there's a mystery to it. There's a bit of intrigue. So you said the dark world, right? So, if you could pull behind the curtain and show a little peek inside, what is it really like inside the court?
The UK family court currently, and again I'm going to be fairly candid. The UK family court currently is in a bit of a mess. It is severely under-resourced financially and in terms of its people. And so the problem that I have with it is that I walk into a courtroom and I'm expecting to see a court of law that instills respect in everybody who stands in the room. And I'm expecting to see, working equipment as a bit of a given. I'm expecting to see microphones that work in the room when we talk to each other. But what I'm actually getting in the UK court system now, and it's getting worse as the years go by through lack of investment, what I'm getting is actually a pretty unpleasant place for parties to come into, for former partners to come into and try and reach some resolution, because they're sat on seats that are ripped. They're talking in microphones that don't work. There are plug points for them to plug their, or for me to plug my laptop in or whatever I'm using, where the plug point is hanging out the wall. And so the system, the environment is pretty unpleasant. And that does not help. All that does is instill further conflict. So once we have that environment, once you sort of picture that environment, the UK family court is then still steeped in this secret language that the judge talks to the barristers in, and the barristers talk to the solicitors and the attorneys in, and we all endeavour to be the cleverest person in the room in terms of the vocabulary that we can roll out. And it's really quite antiquated. It's really quite old, and it's unnecessary. The reality is what we're trying to do is sit two people down, and because they have the inability to resolve a matter themselves, otherwise they wouldn't be sat in court next to me, we're trying to resolve the matter for them. But why do we add further weight to the issue by totally baffling them with the language? by totally baffling them with procedures. The fact that, no, you can't do that in this hearing. We can't talk about that particular matter in this hearing. We've got to wait for the next hearing because that's the way the process is laid out.
That makes me crazy.
It is it is crazy. It is crazy. As I say, when people come in to family court, I have clients who obviously arrive for the first time, and I trust the last time in family court going through divorce, and they are baffled, totally baffled by what it is that they're staring at. They come out thinking that can't really be it.
Mm. One of the conversations I often have with a client when I'm wearing my second hat as a certified divorce coach, and I'm not acting as a mediator, because I wear two hats, and they're very different relationships, procedures, and processes. But when I'm coaching somebody and they say to me, I want to prepare for a hearing, or I have a hearing coming up, and can I want to chat with you so I can start to prepare for that. Normally, even if it's a meeting, but particularly if it's a hearing. And my question is, well, what is the topic of the hearing? I just start at the beginning, right? And they look at me like I have 17 heads. And they're like, well, what do you mean the topic? The divorce is the topic. And I said, well, yes, you're correct. The divorce is the whole overlying topic, right? But specifically, what is the topic? And they can't understand that. It's like, well, are we talking about custody? Is this, what? And they like the whole thing. I want to discuss the whole shebang, right? And like, well, that would be rare that, that would occur unless there was some sort of emergency interruption or order or, motion or compliance issue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they can't wrap their head around that. A hearing is about one micro set conversation, right? And I try to educate them on that. And I said, no, don't shoot the messenger. I'm like, don't blame me. But and then they said, well, why is that? So is there a reason for that? Why is it that you can only deal with one micro, or maybe a baby macro issue at a time?
It's in the UK court. It is predetermined procedures and processes. The court doesn't want the judge who's presiding over a hearing. He doesn't want a free for all. He doesn't want a situation where we're hurling subjects onto the table that we want to discuss. Yeah, but I want to talk about the cars. Yeah, but I want to talk about the house. I want to talk about bring the children in. I want to bring in maintenance. So the judge, in order to control the situation, takes little bite-sized chunks of the issue and says, today we will deal with just a small element of this, because otherwise it just becomes unwieldy. And it just becomes impossible to actually conduct anything. And it just becomes, as I say, a free-for-all. It's people hooping and hollering across the courtroom at each other. So there has to be a degree of method to it for it to work. But I absolutely appreciate the frustration of people that say, well, why don't we just go in and sit down and bang our way through it? And if it takes 3 hours or 4 hours, it takes 3 or 4 hours. Because there's the other issue, that the court doesn't allow you just to come in and sit down and it takes as long as it takes. The court has allocated you a period of time, and that time can be anything from 30 minutes in the UK court for an allocated hearing up to a day. Day hearings are very rare. And so you might arrive, and to be fair, I was in court this morning, doesn't matter what the matter was, but I was in court this morning, and after 10 minutes of preamble, the judge said, I remind everybody, this is a 30-minute hearing. I suggest we get to the point. So there is an antiquity to the court system, given that it is steeped in law that is steeped in history. Yes. And elements of it, unfortunately, have not been updated. And it is a foreign world when you enter it from the outside. And people who leave when they've finished, and thankfully people do finish, but when they've finished, and hopefully with some sort of equitable resolution, they do then go and recount the tale to their friends about the fact they've just spent a year or 2 years in arguably the strangest place in the world, which is the family court, which is like some secret coven. where they all talk bizarrely, and the decisions they make are ridiculous. Welcome to family court.
Beautifully said, sir. Beautifully said. So, there is a sense of reverence and respect in that history of the court system, right? And that
Without a doubt.
going back literally thousands of years, if we go back to perhaps Greek and Roman days of the early days of the court systems, and how the court was, I don't want to use the word invented, but created, right? And how the UK sort of created their own system, and each, of course, the US developed their system, and obviously there's a lot of overlap with countries, but they're also highly unique. But across the board, there is this beautiful, maybe beautiful isn't the word, um, respect, right? Where there's a certain demeanor, a certain decorum, what you wear, what you don't wear, what you say, what you don't say, chewing gum, eating, crinkly water bottles. I had a meeting last night, and I just took out a water bottle and distinctly crinkled it horribly so everyone could hear that horrible noise. And I said, none, if one of my clients walks in with one of those crinkly water bottles, I probably would, slap them on the wrist. So, there's this set proper respect for the court system, as it should be. Now, I am often appalled at
Mm.
what people wear in court, Daniel.
Now, don't get me
Court.
started, Paulette. Do not get me started on what
Okay,
people
okay.
wear.
I understand, casual Friday and all that, and we don't need to, that's fine. That's a corporate world. But, a court is court. And even attorneys now are not, in my opinion, dressing appropriately. I've seen that. I think ladies should wear either trousers or a skirt below the knee, and I won't, a buttoned blouse that's appropriately buttoned. Your hair tied back in a certain way, and gentlemen groomed with shaven with a tie. And I'm being old school here, but there's a certain really respect for the court. A judge, the formality of it. And what you wear says so much about yourself. Your preparation, coming with prepared documents that are either paper clipped or stapled together in an organized fashion. Are they alphabetical? Are they in a folder? Show up prepared. They come in with this. They're lucky if it's folded 5 times, thrown in their purse or a backpack. And they look like they rolled out of bed. They come with, crinkly candy bars and soda cans. And of course they're on their phone, and don't get me started. But that is, if you don't want to be seen as a credible client, go ahead, do all those things, right? Go for it. But the judge is, yes, judging you. Maybe not really the way we're talking, but everybody has an opinion. And if you want to be shown in a proper light, being prepared, credible, believable, reliable, and yes, likable in some cases. Who doesn't want to be, likable in court? Then by all means, show up in your jammies, talk on your phone, smack gum, chew a mint, whatever you feel like doing. But if you want to be taken seriously, please don't do any of those things.
No, absolutely. I have an adage that I use time and time again with my clients, which is, it's a court of law. Respect the court, and the court will respect you.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and in order to do that, that is exactly turning up. I don't ask my clients, because I say to them, sadly we have become a little more informal. And I'm with you, Paulette, on the collar and tie. I live in collar and tie. I go to court in collar and tie because there's no other way to attend. But it has become more informal as the years have rolled by, and it is now acceptable, maybe not to me, but acceptable to turn up in court with an open shirt, or with a t-shirt on, or dare I say even with jeans on, not as a professional but as a party, as a somebody who's going to court. But the example I will use is this, and this is arguably, in all my time of being in court, the worst example, but I use it because it's almost laughable. I had a gentleman, we were doing his divorce many years ago, probably about 10 years ago now. And he walked into the court building, and I looked at him, and I sort of looked at him thinking, what I see in front of me is not actually happening. I have to tell myself it's not happening, because he was wearing, and I'm going to have to use the word, he was wearing a football kit, soccer on your side of the water, Paulette. So he was wearing a soccer kit from head to toe, the shirt, the shorts, the socks, the trainers. He was wearing a soccer kit, and his intention was to come into court wearing that soccer kit.
How did that go over?
Well, it didn't, because I didn't allow it to go over. We we had about 15 minutes before the hearing started. I dragged him out of the court building, dragged him across the road to the local supermarket that happens to sell clothing, bought him a pair of trousers and a shirt, and said, right, now we'll go into court.
Good for you. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, beat a dead horse, as they say, but there, court is okay. We can't control if the microphones are broken and the court system's being understaffed, or perhaps shoddy conditions. But you can control yourself. You
Yes.
can show up. You can hire a professional, and we can talk at great length about what that criteria is to have. Pro bono versus paid clients, and I commend you for that. I do quite a bit of pro bono my work myself, just when I see that there really is a financial struggle, and I can even just give them a quick consultation and guide them with, like, perhaps you could do this, and what do you think about this, and giving them some direction so that they're not making a mistake, just and not charging them a penny, just saying, moving them at least further along that step. But with that said, it really is important, if you're going to present yourself in a professional manner and you're asking the court for a result that will benefit you, your children, and your family, you've got to take this seriously. This is almost a full-time job when you're divorcing. You have to do your homework, be prepared, be organized, have all your ducks in the row, know what you're doing. Study what you need to study. Be informed as best as you can. And if you don't have the demeanor, the means for that, reach out. There's so many resources out there for people. There's great books, there's great podcasts, there's great experts, coaches. There's so many things you can do to prepare yourself in a better light. But once you've done that, and of course, everybody's situation is different. You yourself have created this platform that I want to get into. So,
Mm-hmm.
talk to us a little bit about this tool, this platform that you yourself have created, invented. It's fascinating, and I'm hoping that it really becomes more of a daily tool that people can utilize.
It's something that we started to develop over the last 12 months, when and it really fell out of the whole issue of pro bono, because I say we can't turn anybody away from our door, so because it's a human to human thing. So I wanted to build something that was that was accessible to people who potentially were financially compromised in their ability to come and engage with me or another legal professional. So we're in the final throes, we're in the testing stage, and that means nothing to me, because I'm not it's not my skill set. Of about to We'll be launching later this year a platform, and the purpose of this platform is to allow people to have a legal representation alongside them, but there's nobody actually there. What they have access to is a series of training modules that they can revisit time and time and time again. Also in there's a series of counseling modules, there's a series of how-tos. And what it does is it allows you to go through family court. The original platform is for the UK. Allow you to go through family court with no legal representation whatsoever. It will tell you everything from how to address a judge, to how to engage in a pre-hearing discussion with a legal representative, to how to write a statement, to how to prepare the application form, how to deal with challenge, how to deal with dispute. So it covers all the issues. And our plan is that we will launch it first in the UK. It's called Family Court Mastery. And it'll be launched. The first platform will launch in the UK, and then our plan is that once we've sort of ironed the bugs out of it and got it to work, we're then going to have it converted in order that it will then become an American platform to cover the American law system, and then we'll convert again, and maybe we'll go to Australia next, then we'll convert again, and maybe we'll go wherever. But that's the plan. because I want people, for a fraction of the normal cost, to be able to access the court system and not be blind and not be drowning in it and not be lost in this bizarre dark world that they've just entered into. I want them to be able to carry this platform on their phones, as most people do, and something happens in family court, and this really is the wish for me. Something happens in the court proceeding, the court breaks for lunch, and they go onto the platform, type in, "This has just happened, what do I do now?" And it gives them some very real, very, very in the moment advice. This is what you need to do now.
Brilliant. So, family court mastery would be accessible to anyone who's contemplating divorce and kind of managing it, is trying to do their research and get educated prior. Is it?
Yep, I say you can dial. You'll be able to dial into it. You'll be able to sort of subscribe into it. Prior to even the process starting, just say, well, let me just get a bit of insight, and then you can keep it with you as a companion throughout the actual process. That's what our design and beyond, because there are some modules in there that sort of deal with the afterlife. So once it's all done, how do I deal with life then? How do I co-parent? How do I engage with this person who at one point I had a love affair with, and now I've gone through the period of time where I absolutely despise them and I hope they get hit by a truck. And now I need to deal with the next stage of that process, which is, I need to get some sort of civilized relationship with them, because there's probably children in the middle of that.
Good to know. And as you know, or you may not, but I am a family mediator specializing in alternative dispute resolution. And when I'm wearing that hat and I'm working with couples so that we could ultimately try to avoid the family court system as much as possible, it really it helps them create a little bit more or a lot more, depending on the situation, of that amicable, more friendly. We should be able to go to our children's high school graduations together. We should be able to go to our kids' weddings together. We should be able to celebrate grandchildren together, and so on and so forth. Because unfortunately, in contested, knock 'em out, drag 'em out, litigated cases that may or may not go to trial or beyond, the more you walk down that path, the greater the likelihood that those life events will not be able to be celebrated together because of the angst, the anger, resentment, dare I say hatred. Maybe we don't really want our spouse to get hit by a bus, but there are those moments when maybe we do want them to get hit by a bus. And, it's tricky. And in those situations, I know you do encourage clients to mediate and to have conversations that could help them avoid the full version of litigation. So I commend you for including that in the mastery of the knowledge of what that is. A lot of people ask me about, mediation, and they'll say, "Oh, we mediated and it failed." And more than leaning towards, we litigated and had a mediation session during litigation, and that particular mediation session failed. But maybe not the whole enchilada, as they say, of mediation, right? And mediation kind of happens in little bits and pieces, right? It's those little tiny bite-sized conversations about micro parts of the settlement or the agreement that hopefully the couple can create. So I'm thrilled to have found you and be able to present this platform, this mastery to those. What's the best way for people to learn more about that particular platform? Not sure if you've made it public yet or what your plans are with that, but what is the best way for people to learn more about you, about your platform with that family law guy, and share with everybody.
I can be found whether I want to or not, on social media, on YouTube and on Instagram and on TikTok, which is TikTok is just a new revelation to me, as that family law guy. So you search that family law guy and you'll find that I pop up. And we provide lots and lots and lots and lots of tips and hints of how to deal with family law issues, both inside and outside the court. And we're keeping people updated as to how we're developing family court mastery. And I think if I was to give an educated guess, I think around about October, family court mastery will be available on the marketplace in the UK, and then let's assume that 12 months later in the US. And so we'll just keep people updated as to what's happening in terms of family court mastery, and keep giving people a little sort of flavour and a little hint as to what it's going to allow them to do. But in the meantime, because I appreciate October is still some months away, not many, but still months away.
Sure.
We still engage with clients, and we still, we still provide lots of free advice to clients who either don't fit the criteria to join our pro bono program, or really they just need a couple of tips, an hour's worth of work like you do with yours, just to give them a bit of guidance to get them on their way. So, but yeah, so that family law guy on social media is where you're going to find me and my team, and what it is that we are trying to achieve every day to remove conflict from our clients' lives. But the objective for me is not how much money can I remove from my client. The objective for me is how much money can I stop my client from spending.
Well, I'm nodding my head in full agreement. I couldn't say it better. Thank you so much, Daniel. I love your platform, what you're achieving, the effort that you're making, the difference that you're making in people's lives, and being a guest for me. So everybody, if you're in the UK and you're seeking some guidance and advice about your marriage and contemplating divorce, Daniel's your guy. So until next time, make it better. I'll see you next time. Bye.